So we will stop this art performance just for a minute. It's a good time for a really short break because the overture of the Flying Dutchman is about to finish, and then the main part, of course, with the Librit, with the singers will start. I should say that it's not the only opera of Wagner that I like, but I think it's my favorite, even though it's considered the simple one and it's considered the first good one, even though some also count Rienzi. I think Rienzi kind of like lost popularity. I mean, after the World War, the Second World War, maybe because it was known to be the favorite music of Hitler. But I think that recently it actually bounced back, and it's now considered the first serious. Because before the Flying Dutchman, Wagner written 3 operas that are considered juvenile or something, and Rienzi is one of. But I mean, now I think that it's kind of repopularized. I mean, maybe the Hitler connection is forgotten. Anyway, simpler is not necessarily less of lesser quality. I mean, it doesn't need to be 10 hours in order to be good. But the reason I wanted to stop is because so it's obvious that some people, at least several people, some people are very excited about, found it interesting that I mentioned Yossi Yerushalmi. Maybe he was, a much more important person than I thought he was. I didn't think about it a lot. I must say that, first of all, I'm not in touch with his son. We kind of we stopped being friends, by the end of high school. And after that, only once I met him, maybe 10 years after that, in his apartment in Tel Aviv, and I already understood that, he's not in a good trajectory. Without being too philosophical about it, even though you know that I always, my tendency is to be philosophical about everything. There was obviously a serious drug problem, and should be said. Maybe people want to hear more about, things about Yossi Yerushalmi from 30 years ago. I don't have much to say because I must admit that, even though I spent quite a bit of time in their home, in their house, in Ra'anana, even before that, in Recanati, when they should be said that, when me and Aryeh, his son, and we were very good friends, when we met, we were actually very, very young, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And at the time, there was a very short time, maybe a year or less than a year, then that my family we lived. My parents were still married, and we lived in Ramat Aviv Gimel and Recanati 1, and they lived in Recanati 2. So presumably for a very short time, we were almost peers with regards to socioeconomic status. But it was probably several months. But and it was never really actually the case. They were always considerably richer than us. And tremendously so. It was kind of irregularity in the current of life. But just a couple of months. Not many months after we moved to Recanati 1, my parents divorced, and then of course me and my brothers. We stayed with our mother, and of course we moved to a much more modest apartment in Ramat Aviv Gimel, and then to the older Ramat Aviv, which is much less kind of fancy, even though still very good neighborhood, and that was the neighborhood where I grew up, and I have good memories from Ramat Aviv, very good memories. And I remember that we were kind of good friends during the kindergarten years, and actually I have quite a few memories from kindergarten with Aryeh. But when we when I entered first grade, actually I was 5 years old. I mean, I entered first grade. I mean, 1 year before. I mean, then like the normal time. So, so when I was 5, and like it didn't like continue to primary school because they went to United States for 3 years for Pennsylvania, single Pennsylvania, and so so and they went back when they 3 years after that, and to the same apartment. And interestingly, I mean, just immediately, I mean, I had very good connection with Aryeh, even though he was a completely different person, from the age of like 6 to 9, and I was from 5 to 8. I mean, they are completely different people, it's not. And he was always, for many years, he was kind of like an outsider a little bit because of the American kind of a connection, because he was extremely smart, Aryeh, very intelligent, and I think that very intelligent kids, I mean, more than even other like regular kids, I mean, the like early experiences and memories are cemented in them even more than usual. So when he came back, he was 9 years old, but very different 9 years old than any other child that I knew, and he was always unconventional and very intelligent and very unconventional, and people in Ramat Aviv actually didn't like him, like the children, but I mean, it's only, something in favor for him, because they were all very, very, close-minded, and rich kids that are not, the problem was not that they were rich. I mean, he was actually richer than most of them, but I mean, the problem is that he was just, close-minded. So, but we had very good connection, and we became very good friends, but not much longer after that, they moved again to actually to a house, like a house in Ra'anana. I think it's the same street where the former Prime Minister Bennett lives, and kind of they upped their socio-economic status substantially. But we stay, and of course when we went to different schools, and but we kept being friends, even though we didn't study at the same school until the end of high school. And I spent a lot of time in their house, actually. And he also spent quite a bit of time in my place. But I mean, I think that I spent more time in his house because it was kind of like like a mansion. They had like a huge basement, and and I have many memories of Aryeh, the son, but I mean, not much of his father. He was, always, mostly when he wasn't there, because, he was always, in his kind of business trips. So he was a businessman, quite serious businessman, even though, in retrospect, I understand that maybe there was something about him much more important than I understood, but, I mean, he was a businessman, and, but yes, we spoke a little bit, even like in early childhood, and one conversation that I remember, it was very early, maybe I was like 9 or 10 years old, not more than that, 10 years old. I remember that I spoke with him, and it left a big impression on my mind. I don't know why. It wasn't something extraordinary, but I remember that it was really something that, made me think, I thought about it a lot, at the time. And this is why I stopped the music now. Before the libret begins, like after the end of the overture. So he liked classical music. I remember that he liked Mahler. Maybe he still does. I don't know. Anyway, so we spoke about music and literature, and I've kind of suggested the superiority of literature over music, because presumably I said that with literature you can articulate ideas, not only just tell a story that you presumably can do with music as well, because I already understood that that music can be used for narration, just by itself without words. But I said but literature is superior because it can used to articulate ideas. Maybe you think that it's unconventional, conversation for 10 years old, but that's largely the way it was. That you can, so I said you can convey ideas, and you cannot do it with music. So, and Yossi was vehemently against it. He said that, I mean, this is absolutely not true, and that music can, I mean, be used to, I mean, to express ideas even much more than literature. And I was shocked by this by this statement, and I thought about it quite a bit after that. So let's get back to the Flying Dutchman.